Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Fiore. Welcome to a special edition of Outtakes with Fiore. This is our annual awards edition. Now, before we get into things, all the awards are done and over with, and they culminated with the Oscars, of course, which proved a big surprise for everybody because the movie Parasite, which was a foreign film, not only won Best Foreign Film, but Best Picture of the Year. First time in movie history that something like that has happened. Now, you can always go on the YouTube channel or my blog and read my review for Parasite. Of the three movies that Holden is best known for, I think this is probably the weakest one of the three, but there you have it. So, all the awards have been given out. Those who were winners and those who were losers, can you say the Irishman, are all over and done with. But I've always said on this show that the movies that I select for the best movies of the year, the Fist of Fury Award winners, will be in your home video collection and will be the movies that you go and see more than the ones they put up for the awards. On tonight's show, we'll prove that as we compare and contrast the award winners from the Critics' Choice Association with the ones picked by yours truly. And it all starts for you tonight on Outtakes with Fiore. Say good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this special edition of Outtakes with You, our annual awards edition. And let me tell you first off that I am a charter member of the Broadcast Film Critics Association. When I first joined the organization, I think I was like number 40, 41, something like that. Now there are over 400 critics in the organization. And they have changed their name. They're no longer the Broadcast Film Critics Association. They are the Critics' Choice Association. They named it after the awards that they give out, which are the Critics' Choice Awards. So now the BFCA has become the CCA. Let me explain to you a little bit about how these awards work. Look at this fancy, nice little booklet we have here. Let me make sure I hold this up enough. This has some really amazing things in it. For example, here's the 2-page spread on Richard Jewell, which was pretty much shut out of everything. Okay, but all the movies that the organization considers top contenders for the top awards are all in here. Here's Downton Abbey. I don't think that went too many places either. Okay, and then in the back, they do this for the TV shows as well. So, most of these I don't bother with. I just deal with the movies. But this is the type of gloss and the type of information that the organization puts out. Now, naturally, a lot of the movies that are placed in here simply because, the big PR campaigns, probably a lot of swag to members of the board and what have you. And that's how you get, the big stuff to go into something like this. The Critics' Choice Awards are considered the harbinger of what's coming as far as the Oscars are concerned. And I think you'll see that as we run these down, they were all pretty close, except for Best Movie of the Year. They were all very, very close. So what I want to do now is I want to compare what my organization, the Critics' Choice Association, selected for their best against what I selected for my best. Let's start off first with Best Supporting Actor. Critics' Choice picked Brad Pitt for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is another one of those movies where I think it was a misdemeanor, if you will, because Brad Pitt dominates this movie. And why he was selected as supporting actor, I'm not really sure. Leo DiCaprio was considered the main actor, but geez, Pitt had more screen time and certainly carried much more of the story. So I think it was one of those political things where they put him in a different category to help him win, and in this case, it worked. I didn't pick Brad Pitt for that. I had some problems with Once Upon a Time, and again, you can go back and check my review. I actually picked Adam Driver I know, people just fell out of their seat. I have not liked anything that Adam Driver has done. I got to be honest with you. I think he's horrible, and he's terrible in the Star Wars series. He's bad. But he did a comedy this year called The Dead Don't Die with Bill Murray, and in that, he was great. So the fact that he went from, oh my God, this guy's terrible, to, geez, this guy really did good, means he won the award as far as I was concerned. Now, here's a little compare and contrast, if you will. Brad Pitt and Adam Driver.
Come one step closer and I will knock his teeth out. Fix it.
Can I at least get a rag to wipe my face first?
Nope. Tire first.
So what are you thinking? You really want to know? I'm thinking zombies.
What?
You know, zombies. Ghouls. The undead.
Best Supporting Actress, this was pretty much a lock-in from the get-go. The CCA gave it to Laura Dern for her role in Marriage Story. Marriage Story is still playing well on the streaming networks. It seems to go over very well there. I believe it's a Netflix movie. Laura did fine, but I don't think she compared with Jennifer Lopez in Hustlers. And you got to realize when I say this, that if you go back and check my review, I hated Hustlers. It was a terrible, god-awful movie. It gave the wrong message on every front. But J-Lo was really good in this, and she was the only reason why watching this movie was even viable. You decide. Compare and contrast. Here is Laura Dern and Jennifer Lopez.
I do it too. We can accept an imperfect dad. Let's face it, the idea of a good father was only invented like 30 years ago. Before that, fathers were expected to be silent and absent and unreliable and selfish. And we can all say we want them to be different. But on some basic level, we accept them.
You know, a lot of people are afraid to wear denim in the ocean, but I swear that these get more comfortable when they're wet, specifically salt water. Here, try these on. It's gonna take some time for me to, save up the money for my label, but I do have a client who's a graphic designer, and he mocked up this logo for me. Swimona. Catchy, right?
Next, let's move on to Best Actress. The CCA picked Renee Zellweger for her role of Judy Garland in the movie Judy. I'm skeptical on these movies that kind of praise previous stars and heroes of Tinseltown. For me, and nobody had this poor woman on their radar at all because, well, I'll tell you why in a minute. I picked Angela Sarafin. Now, Angela Sarafin starred in a movie called We Are Boats. This was an independent movie, and folks, this is one of the better movies produced last year. You're sitting there saying, I've never seen it. Well, you know what? It's because it didn't have one of the giant advertising and promotional campaigns to merit getting put into a nice promotional thing here saying, please vote for us and vote for this movie and what have you. But it was a really good, solid movie. You could always check my review, or you could even check these performances now. Here is Judy and We Are Boats.
Won't it be fine? Days may be cloudy or sunny. We're in or we're out of the morning. I'm with you always. I'm with you rain or shine. I'm gonna love you. I'm gonna love.
But death is only the beginning.
What is it that you think we do here?
It involves helping people, and I'd be good at that.
Why should I consider you?
Because I won't quit.
Now, when we move on to Best Actor, probably one of the worst movies of the year, Joker, garnered the award for Joaquin Phoenix. You know, folks, this movie was just bad. It made $1 billion. I don't care what it made. It was a terrible movie. They're thinking on making a sequel. Please don't. This one struck a note with all of the social justice people, and that's why everybody crammed to this, and it got an awful lot of press and publicity that it really did not deserve. Me, I picked an old favorite, Matthew Broderick. Yeah, the one star that ruined a Godzilla movie. He starred in a movie called To Dust. You're going to say again, Fiore, I never heard of it. That's because it was a small movie, independent, released only in the top 25 markets. I was lucky enough to eyeball it. You can still catch it on streaming devices. And this movie was funny. There were a lot of good comedies last year, but you wouldn't know it by looking down the list of award contenders. To Dust was exceptionally funny, and Matthew Broderick was definitely in his milieu. Here's a look.
I'm nervous right now. I am nervous.
Hey, Mary. I've been on. I'm sorry, what's that? That's very funny, Murray. You know, I'm also a comedian.
My wife, she died.
Oh, I'm very sorry.
And these images I'm having those, they just...
Things got you down?
They have me real down.
Well, I'm still not sure
Last night, it was her too. The nail cracked. It had browned.
Maybe you need a podiatrist.
All right, let's move on to Best Director. I have always said you shouldn't have a Best Director and a Best Movie that are often different. You know, usually they go hand in hand, but that has not been the circumstance over the last, I'd say, decade when it comes to handing out awards. And they've really treated those two categories differently so that you can have someone who does an amazing job directing but yet hasn't produced a movie worthy enough of Movie of the Year. It sounds odd to say that, but that's pretty much been the trend. The CCA couldn't make up its mind this year. They picked Bong Joon-ho, who of Parasite, and Sam Mendes as a tie for Best Director. I can understand Sam Mendes. He really tried something new with the one-shot 1917. I talked a little bit in the beginning about Ho and his movie Parasite. I thought Snowpiercer and The Host were much, much better movies than Parasite was. But again, Parasite hit all of the social justice themes that are real big in Hollywood, and I think that helped push it over. My pick was M. Night Shyamalan, and everybody says, how can you pick that guy? People really don't like him in Hollywood. But I thought he did something very, very clever in putting together. He did the third movie in a trilogy. He did Glass. And he was able to take two movies that basically spanned, I think the first one, Unbreakable, came out in the 80s. So he was able to take movies that spanned decades and tie them all up into a third movie that was just as riveting as the first one. To me, that's good. I mean, he had the script down, the characters down, the dialogue down, even the music in this one was good, and he wrapped it all up kind of nicely, especially for those of you that enjoy reading comic books. Here's a look at the two films.
와. 오. 와, 완전 물바다.
현재의 날씨는 맑으다. 약간의 구름 이동 중. 그러나 비구름은 아니구려.
알겠다. 오버.
What's to see?
So I mentioned a little earlier that there were a lot of comedies that came out in 2019 that just simply did not receive the recognition or the little tip of the hat, if you will, for how funny They actually were. The CCA, as its best comedy of 2019, picked Dolomite Is My Name. This was not a bad movie. There were a lot of laughs in this, and a lot of it is to Eddie Murphy. In fact, the CCA, if you watch the awards ceremony, did a special tribute to Eddie Murphy, and I took pieces of that tribute and reposted it up on the Outtakes with Fiore Facebook page so that you could see what they did. I like Eddie Murphy. He's funny. He has really been shafted by Hollywood over the years, and this one, which is again another Netflix movie, he circumvented that Hollywood blacklist that he's on and was able to come through and really shine. So not a bad selection there for the CCA. For me, I told you earlier, I liked Adam Driver in a movie called The Dead Don't Die, and that I thought was one of the best comedies of the year. He starred with Bill Murray. It was about aliens and spaceships and zombies and all kind of stuff was going on in here. They broke the fourth frame I don't know how many times. It was just a nutso type of comedy with a lot of different cameo appearances from stars, even rock stars, and it just kept me laughing. And I got a tie on this one. And here we go again. It's a movie called 79 Parts. I'd never heard of it. Of course you didn't. It's a foreign film. But it made me laugh like crazy. And it's got an awful lot of hits on the YouTube channel as well. So I think we spurred some interest in this one globally. You might still be able to find it on some of your streaming devices. Tie for me, The Dead Don't Die and 79 Parts. They counter with Dolomite Is My Name.
Action! Cut!
How was that? I see no reason to do it again.
Do you fraternize with any persons known to be engaging in criminal activity?
Why didn't you tell me?
It's a little bit complicated.
Either you're innocent, got bad advice, or you were involved. Sounds like you got yourself a problem.
You break it, it comes out of your paycheck.
Guys, shouldn't we be telling each other that it's all gonna be okay? That this will all go away like a bad dream? Ronnie?
Gee, Mindy, I'm not sure I can say that.
Cliff? Please?
It's all gonna be okay, Mindy. Maybe it'll all just go away like a bad dream.
I doubt it.
Best action film of 2019. The CCA took it real conservative on this, and they picked Avengers Endgame. And once again, it was the political agenda that came through on this because we had, the Captain Marvel and the women banding together to try to fight Thanos and, hokey pokey stuff. Me, I picked John Wick 3. There wasn't too much social stuff in that one. They just pick up some guns and let's kill a whole lot of people. And I enjoyed that. Action movie? Action? Compare Endgame and John Wick 3.
And then, with the stones you've collected for me, create a new one, teeming with life, that knows not what it is lost, but only what it has been given. A grateful universe.
Born out of blood.
They'll never know it. Because you won't be alive to tell them.
Now, this is one of my categories that I have a particular bone to pick with because best sci-fi horror. I don't think you should lump sci-fi and horror together in one genre. I think they are worthy enough to have their own genres, and certainly there are a lot of releases in each of those categories that they can stand on their own. But the CCA will not do that. They picked as their best sci-fi horror film for 2019, Us. This is Jordan Peele's movie about the dual existence of people. Yeah, Us. You know, it was a good movie. I enjoyed it. Best horror film of the year? Oh my goodness, there were some amazing horror films that came out. And I tell you what, this was one of my toughest categories. Not only did you have some great sci-fi movies, you had a couple horror movies come out at the end of the year. The Dwelling was one. The Fair was another. The Fair won the Fist of Fury Award for 2019. These films were absolutely great. But I got to tell you, when it came down to things, I gave it to another indie movie from across the pond. This one was British, and it was called 13 Graves. This was an amazing horror movie, and part of the reason was the lighting and the cinematography, which were just absolutely amazing. 13 Graves and Us. I know Jordan Peele was the politically correct person to pick, and certainly the themes running about, race in his movie, another thing that Hollywood likes. But I'd like to seal our ties more with our cousins across the Atlantic. I went with 13 Graves.
She gave birth to a little monster. Hombre was born laughing. The girl had a second child, a boy this time. They had to cut her open and take him from her belly. The shadow had to do it all. Herself. She named him Pluto. He was born to love fire.
I've got 11 million quid, and you can have it. You two, all of it. Just let me walk away.
Dick.
Someone dug him up. Someone dug them all up.
And that brings us down finally to the best picture of the year. It's always tough to do this one, I got to admit. I think I had about 10 of them last year, and to pick one out of that 10, a lot of times the 10 that I pick are in different categories. So it's kind of like comparing apples and oranges because you have to pick one that's a little bit better than the other. The CCA went with Quentin Tarantino and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Folks, I can't emphasize enough that Tarantino has missed the mark in his movies ever since Sally Menke died. Sally Menke was his editor, and she was the only one so far behind the camera that can corral him and get him to make movies the way they're supposed to be made. I had a lot of problems with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like the story, like the alternative universe that he likes to present. But, well over 3 hours, no, it didn't deserve that at all. Absolutely not. This could have been done in under 2 hours and still been just as effective. Me, I picked Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Fior, what are you talking about? Let me tell you what I'm talking about here. Since this movie came out in May of last year, 2019, I think I've seen it 3 times. And every time I have seen this movie, ladies and gentlemen, I have found something in here that is just absolutely amazing. I think as far as the script goes, that's where they ran into trouble. It's not because they didn't have a story. They did have a story, and it was usually better than some of the Godzilla movies. But the antagonists, the bad guys in this movie, were the green weenies. They were the people who look at sustainability, I believe they call it. These are people that want to recycle everything. These are the people who want to add 150 more miles of dangerous bike lanes to Pittsburgh's roads because they think, we should all ride bicycles instead of fossil fuels. Yeah, these wackadoos, they were the bad guys in this. And that's not good in Hollywood because Hollywood loves these people. So this movie, from the minute it was released, started getting bad press started getting amazingly just tear down types of PR because it selected as one of the as the antagonist the folks that Hollywood wants to support. So there you have it. But special effects in this were good. The actors who knew they were going to be upstaged by monsters still did a great job in acting this out, and the movie was solid all the way through. It had everything together in it: the effects, the action, story, and music. Cinematography was amazing, especially when they do the whole Ghidra thing. It was just wow. I mean, it's just the scope of it was unbelievable. Now, I did have the opportunity to see it first time around in IMAX, and I think that helped an awful lot. But as for my money, this was the movie to see in 2019. You judge. Here's a couple of clips.
To my right is Bounty Law Series lead and Jake Cahill himself, Rick Dalton. And to my left is Rick's stunt double, Cliff Booth. So, Rick, explain to the audience exactly what it is a stunt double does.
Actors are required to do a lot of dangerous stuff. Cliff here is meant to help carry the load.
Is that how you describe your job, Cliff?
What, carrying his load? Yeah, it's about right.
Oh, yeah, sure. Let's bring him in for a beer.
No, this time we join the fight.
Run.
This is Godzilla's world. We just live in it.
Damn right.
There you go. Take a look at that. That's some of the art from this book on this. This was just amazing the way they put this movie together. I thought it was definitely worthwhile. And David and I were talking during the break while you were watching those clips. And I guess we can call this a little bit more of an adult Godzilla movie because of some of the dialogue in it. But I thought it worked out really well. So there you have. There's the compare and contrast of our special edition. I still say that the movies that I selected you will probably have in your video collection more than some of these ones that that won through the CCA, mostly because they don't have the ad campaigns that try to sway or buy your vote on everything there. So that's how it wraps up the Critics' Choice Association selections, and you can compare those if you want to some of the other ones that were the Screen Actors Guild, the editors, cinematography. Roger Deakins won for 1970. They all have their own awards, and you could check all of those out. But now you know the ones that I selected, and I think you'll have them there. And those ones I mentioned that were independents, you guys want to check those out. You can get onto your streaming device, and you won't be disappointed. Next time, we will get back to our regular format and all of my pithy comments on movies, both independent and those hitting the major circuit. I hope you enjoyed this special edition of Outtakes with Fiore, our annual awards edition. Next year promises to be even more funner. Until next time, I'm Fiore, and I'll see you in the theaters.